que això passa. Atenció, Ronaldo, que ha tornat a robar la pilota i gol! Gol, gol! Un minut.
He wasn't just the best striker in the world. For a brief, blazing moment, he felt like something more, something alien, a force of nature disguised in a Brazilian smile. Ronaldo Nazário didn't play football. He rewrote its physics. And then, he vanished, broken, bent, brought to his knees, quite literally, by the one thing even he couldn't outrun, his own body. The world watched in horror on April 12, 2000. A few minutes into his long-awaited comeback, Ronaldo made a simple feint and collapsed. No contact, no foul, just an unnatural, grotesque twist of the knee, as if the joint had exploded under the weight of its own genius. Even the opponents didn't chase the ball. They rushed to him. Something wasn't right. Something was never going to be right again. But that wasn't the first time he had disappeared. Nor would it be the last. Before the world could blink, the once invincible wonder kid had become football's greatest what if. What if his knees hadn't shattered? What if his prime had lasted more than just a flicker? What if the true Ronaldo, the one we saw in 1996, in 1998, had been allowed to grow? This is not a story of goals and trophies. It's a story of pain behind the smile, of surgeries behind the magic. It's a story of a man who came from nothing, conquered everything, and then lost the one thing he needed to stay on top, his legs. They called him the phenomenon. But no one talks about how the phenomenon died while the man still walked. To understand the tragedy of Ronaldo Nazário, we must return to the world that birthed him, Brazil in the late 1980s, a country aching for a new footballing messiah after the twilight of Zico, Socrates, and Falcao. It was a nation reeling from economic hardship, social unrest, and a fading sense of invincibility on the pitch. The soul of Joga Bonito, the beautiful game, was still sacred, but its messengers were growing old. Into this vacuum stepped a skinny boy from the favelas of Bento Ribeiro, Rio de Janeiro. Ronaldo Luis Nazário de Lima was born in 1976 into poverty and chaos. His parents divorced when he was young. He dropped out of school at 11. But by 13, he was already known on the futsal courts as the boy who vanished, because no defender could ever see where he went next. In the early 90s, Brazil had one eye on the present, Romário, Bebeto, Rai, and the other squinting into the future. That future arrived faster than anyone expected. At just 16, Ronaldo was already being whispered about as the next Pelé. The comparison wasn't careless. In fact, it was Pelé himself who first endorsed him, saying, "This boy is going to make history." The global stage caught its first glimpse in 1994. Ronaldo was part of the Brazil squad that won the World Cup in the United States. Though he never played a minute, the cameras always found him, the baby-faced teenager on the bench, watching legends while waiting for his own chapter to begin. But it wasn't just Brazil watching. Europe had been put on alert. PSV Eindhoven signed him immediately after the World Cup, thanks largely to the same scout who had brought Romário before him. And what followed was something almost supernatural: 54 goals in 57 games. Lightning acceleration, impossible balance. The ability to change direction without changing stride, as if his brain played at 1.5x speed while everyone else was stuck in normal time. From PSV to Barcelona, his legend exploded. In the 1996-97 season under Sir Bobby Robson, Ronaldo scored 47 goals in 49 appearances. And not tap-ins. Goals that bent physics, defied tactics, and silenced logic. The most iconic came against Compostela. He collected the ball in his own half, bulldozed through 5 defenders, and slotted past the keeper like it was all preordained. Robson buried his head in his hands on the touchline, not out of frustration, but disbelief. "Where did this kid come from?" he muttered. That season earned Ronaldo his first Ballon d'Or. He was 21, the youngest ever. At that point, most of Europe, and certainly Brazil, believed they were watching the heir to Pelé, and perhaps even a challenger to Maradona's chaotic genius. But the era Ronaldo stepped into was a dangerous one. Football in the late 90s was shifting. The physicality was brutal. Medical science lagged behind. Pitches were heavier, defenders were harsher, and referees less protective. It was an age that prized gladiators, not artists. And Ronaldo was both, which meant he was hunted. Internazionale signed him in 1997 for a world record fee. Serie A was then the pinnacle of football, and its cruelest arena. In his debut season, Ronaldo lit up the league with goals, turns, and jaw-dropping moments, winning the UEFA Cup in 1998 with a performance in the final that has since become legend. He dribbled around the goalkeeper, paused, waited for the angle, and scored like a man toying with time. Yet behind the goals, something darker loomed. That summer, the 1998 World Cup in France was supposed to be his coronation. Ronaldo, 21, had the world at his feet. Brazil reached the final, and he had already scored 4 goals and made 3 assists. He was the golden boy, the chosen one. But then, it happened. Hours before the final against France, Ronaldo suffered a seizure in his hotel room. Convulsing, foaming at the mouth, it was a terrifying sight. The squad was shaken. Doctors reportedly advised that he shouldn't play. Initially, he was dropped from the starting lineup. But then, shockingly, just before kickoff, his name reappeared on the team sheet. What happened in that dressing room? Who forced the decision? No one has ever given a full answer. He played like a ghost. Brazil lost 3-0. Ronaldo was a shadow of himself. In the press conference after the game, coach Mario Zagallo looked hollow. Ronaldo played because he wanted to, he said, but his eyes told another story. Speculations ran wild. Pharmaceutical pressure? Sponsorship obligations? Or did Ronaldo himself plead to play, trying to fulfill the prophecy he had been burdened with? That was the first fall. But worse was yet to come. Back at Inter, the physical toll began to show. Tendinitis, muscle tears, and finally the knees, the same tools that had made him divine, started cracking. In November 1999, he suffered a serious knee injury, tearing the tendon. After months of rehab, he returned in April 2000, only to collapse minutes into the match. This time, it was catastrophic. His kneecap had exploded, literally shattered. Doctors said it was a miracle he could even walk again. Most said he would never play. Some said he shouldn't even try. But Ronaldo wasn't done. Not yet. His story had only begun to twist. When Ronaldo Nazário returned to football in 2002, many thought it was a farewell tour in disguise. 2 years had passed since his knee had detonated on live television. He had undergone surgeries so severe that doctors had to rebuild part of his knee with surgical threads and hope. He had missed 628 days of football. For most players, it would have been the end. But Ronaldo was not most players. He returned in a different body, heavier, slower, visibly scarred. But his mind, still years ahead of everyone else, still lethal. He had lost his pace, but his predator instinct had only sharpened. The ball still obeyed him. The box still feared him. Luis Felipe Scolari took the gamble. Against the skepticism of the press and whispers from the Federation, he called up Ronaldo for the 2002 World Cup in South Korea and Japan. Most saw it as a gesture of respect, perhaps a farewell honor. No one, not even Brazil, expected what was about to happen. 8 goals, 8 ruthless, poetic, ghost-haunting goals. Each one was a message. I am still here. He scored in every game but one. In the final against Germany, he delivered the ultimate redemption arc. 2 goals, including a classic poacher's strike after a rebound, sealing Brazil's 5th World Cup. The image of Ronaldo on his knees, fists clenched, eyes wet. It was more than a comeback. It was resurrection. He won the Golden Boot. He won the World Cup. He won the world's heart again. And Real Madrid came calling. In August 2002, Ronaldo signed for the Galacticos. The Madrid era was glamorous. Zidane, Figo, Beckham, Raul, and now the comeback king. His debut goal against Alaves, slaloming between defenders and blasting it in, was a time machine. He finished that season with 30 goals and the Pichichi as La Liga's top scorer. He was no longer lightning, but he was still thunder. Yet for all the fireworks, something began to crack again. This time, not just in his knees, but in his world. The weight he had gained during recovery became a permanent feature. The Ronaldo of 1996 was a blur of muscle and fire. The Ronaldo of 2004 moved differently, smarter, but visibly slower. He became increasingly reliant on explosive bursts rather than sustained runs. The injuries never stopped coming. Calf strains, hamstring pulls, ankle knocks, they piled on like a cruel echo of the past. And then came the whispers of late nights, of training missed, of parties and bottles and absences. Spanish tabloids ran headlines accusing Ronaldo of being unprofessional, that his passion for football had dulled. But what they didn't understand was this: when you fought your body for years, some battles become invisible. The fatigue is not always physical. In 2006, Brazil arrived at the World Cup in Germany with a team of stars and dreams, but the magic was fading. Ronaldo, despite breaking Gerd Müller's all-time World Cup scoring record, was sluggish, criticized, and blamed for Brazil's quarterfinal exit. It was the last time he would wear the iconic yellow shirt on the world stage. Back in Madrid, the love had cooled. The press turned hostile. The club turned colder. By 2007, he was sold to AC Milan. But this wasn't the Ronaldo of old. It was a man limping through greatness, haunted by the memory of what he once was. Then came the final rupture. In 2008, during a match for Milan, Ronaldo tore the ligament in his left knee. Again, the third time. At age 31, he crumpled to the ground, clutching the same joint that had betrayed him in 1999 and 2000. The football world winced. No one needed to be told. This was different. This was final. Doctors declared that most men wouldn't walk normally again after such trauma. But Ronaldo chose one last fight. In 2009, he signed for Corinthians in Brazil. Overweight, bandaged, slower than ever, but still deadly in the box. He scored 23 goals in 38 matches and won 2 domestic titles. The fans, fiercely loyal, embraced him as a war-torn hero. But the fire was flickering. By 2011, Ronaldo announced his retirement. In the press conference, he held back tears. "My body can't take it anymore," he said. "It's time." But the room already knew. What they didn't know, what he confessed later, was that he had been suffering from hypothyroidism, a condition that slowed his metabolism and made weight gain inevitable. He claimed he had been banned from taking the proper medication due to anti-doping rules. And just like that, one more layer of pain was added to the myth. The rise had been meteoric, the fall excruciating, and through it all, the smile remained. But behind it, a war had been waged and lost. The image was always the same, a smile, wide, unbothered, playful. That grin defined Ronaldo Nazário as much as his stepovers or his no-look finishes. It gave the world a sense that he was untouchable, a divine figure immune to the pain that stalks most men. But it was a mask. Behind that smile was a man stitched together by surgeries, scar tissue, and quiet torment. The public rarely saw what came after the matches. The ice baths, the draining fluid from swollen knees, the handfuls of painkillers just to make it through training. His body had become a machine, maintained by science, not nature. At Inter Milan, after the second catastrophic injury, Ronaldo's teammates described him as a ghost in recovery. He trained alone. He walked with a limp most days. He winced when climbing stairs. The world was still showing replays of his wonder goals while he was learning to bend his knee without screaming. The media didn't help. At Real Madrid, one journalist cruelly described him as a genius trapped in a Michelin man's body. Another headline called him the lazy Galactico. It was easy to criticize his weight, but no one knew or cared to know about his hypothyroidism, a chronic condition that slowed his metabolism. Ronaldo finally revealed it publicly in 2011, a decade too late for the critics to eat their words. There were darker nights too. Rumors of depression followed Ronaldo like a shadow during the 2000s. He never confirmed it, but close friends and former teammates hinted at long spells of silence, disappearing for days, avoiding calls. He partied hard, yes, but sometimes those parties weren't celebration. They were escapes. The nightlife of Madrid, Milan, Rio, they became places where he could drown the ache, even if just for a few hours. The football world didn't speak of mental health back then. A limping legend was just a washed-up star, not a man gasping for air beneath the weight of expectation. When he smiled on TV, gave interviews, joked with reporters, fans assumed he was fine. But behind closed doors, Ronaldo battled the slow realization that he would never again be what he once was. Perhaps the most haunting revelation came years later, in a quiet admission. "There was a version of me that I never got to become," he said. "I could feel it inside me, but my body said no." That version, the untouchable one, the heir to Pelé, the shatterer of records, lives only in memory and videotapes. What we got instead was the fragments. Explosive starts, cruel interruptions, impossible comebacks, and a final, reluctant surrender. There was also pain beyond the pitch. Ronaldo's private life often made headlines, and rarely for the right reasons. A failed engagement in 1999, a whirlwind marriage and divorce with Brazilian model Milene Domingues. In 2008, a scandal involving 3 trans women in a Rio motel, a tabloid feeding frenzy that Ronaldo later described as one of the most humiliating experiences of my life. Though the case ended without legal charges, the damage to his public image was severe. Yet even that didn't fully break him, because Ronaldo had grown up in the chaos. His childhood was defined by hardship, a violent neighborhood, an absent father, days without meals. He had escaped all of that with a ball at his feet. But fame couldn't erase trauma, and the body, no matter how gifted, eventually demands a price for glory. Ronaldo paid in full. His relationship with football became complicated. After retirement, he said, "Football took more from me than I gave it, but I'd still do it all over again." That sentence, half love, half lament, sums up the heart of his story. He lived a dream and died in it, again and again, only to rise each time. What people forget is this. Every time he stepped onto the pitch post-2000, he did so with pain. Every goal cost him something. Every celebration came with a limp. Every sprint risked another collapse. He wasn't the man he had been at 21, but he still chased the ball. And in doing so, chased a ghost of himself. By the time he retired at 34, his knees had undergone multiple surgeries. He had endured more than 20 muscle injuries. His smile had faded into something quieter, more weathered. But his legacy? It roared. What remained was the silence, the kind that only comes after the final whistle when the lights dim and the legend leaves the stage. Ronaldo didn't fade like most players. He shattered and then kept walking. Today, he rarely talks about the pain. He owns clubs, he gives interviews, he still smiles. But listen closely, and you'll hear it, that undertone of a man who knows he lived a life at war with his own body. And won, yes, but not without scars. Because no one ever played like Ronaldo, and no one ever broke like him. We've seen greatness in many forms, the discipline of Maldini, the genius of Messi, the fire of Maradona. But Ronaldo Nazário was something else entirely. Not just great, but unreal. For a few short years, he felt like football from another planet, a glitch in the matrix, a promise of what the future of the game might look like. And then he vanished, not in silence, but in suffering. So what do we make of him? Was Ronaldo a wasted genius? Someone who let parties, distractions, and indulgence take priority over legacy? Or was he a victim of a brutal system, a player pushed too hard, too soon, by a world that saw him as a product more than a person? The truth, as always, lives in the tension between those extremes. There is no doubt that Ronaldo made choices that didn't help him. The late nights, the weight issues, the controversies, these were real. But there's a tendency to blame him without understanding the deeper story. A teenager thrust into unimaginable pressure, a body collapsing under the demands of 3 continents, a spirit trying to stay whole while the media tore it apart piece by piece. We ask too much of our legends. We want them to be perfect, flawless, eternal. But Ronaldo was human, brilliant, broken, joyful, angry, powerful, vulnerable, human. He fought battles in the open and others behind closed doors. And still, somehow, he delivered moments we'll remember forever. It's easy to look at his stats. 414 goals in 616 games, 2 Ballon d'Ors, 2 World Cups, 3 FIFA World Player of the Year titles, and conclude that he achieved it all. But stats don't measure lost time. They don't capture the years we never got to see. They don't quantify the absence, the golden seasons lost to surgeries, to recovery, to silence. And here lies the tragedy. Ronaldo Nazário might have been the greatest to ever play the game, if only his body had allowed it. But maybe that's the wrong lens. Maybe we've spent too long chasing the what if and not enough time honoring the what was. Because what we did witness, even in fragments, was extraordinary. This channel believes Ronaldo was both a miracle and a warning. A miracle of talent, showing us that the impossible is sometimes real. A warning of what happens when genius is left unprotected. He didn't have the career arc of a Messi or a Cristiano. His story isn't tidy, but it's human, and that's what makes it unforgettable. So we ask you, did we lose him too soon, or did he lose himself? Was he a broken body masking an unbreakable soul, or a fleeting comet that was never meant to last? You decide. All we know is this: he changed football, even if only for a moment. He's gone from the field, but never from memory. Ronaldo Nazario's legacy isn't wrapped neatly in statistics or trophy counts. It lives in the collective gasp of fans who witnessed him do things no human should have done with a football. It lives in the grainy VHS tapes of him ghosting past 6 defenders, in the trembling nets of Compostela, in the silence after his collapse in Rome. It lives in hearts, because that's where true legends remain. For Brazilians, he was more than a footballer. He was a story of survival, a boy from Bento Ribeiro who fought hunger, broken families, and broken knees, and still smiled at the end. In a nation obsessed with beauty, he brought chaos and rhythm. He carried the weight of Pellé's shadow and somehow carved his own. For the world, he redefined the number 9. Before him, strikers were either strong or fast, clinical or technical. Ronaldo was all of it, and more. He blurred positions, merged archetypes, and made the impossible look easy. Every generation since has been trying to recreate him. Adriano, Ibrahimovic, Benzema, Haaland, they all carry a piece of his DNA. But none are him. And for those who loved the game in the 90s and early 2000s, Ronaldo was emotion. He was a reason to fall in love with football, a reason to believe that for 90 minutes, the world could be magic. That's what hurts most. Not just that he broke, but that we saw a dream flicker and fade before its time. But maybe that's what makes his legend even greater. He didn't need 20 flawless years. He needed only a handful of seasons, a blink, to change everything. He rose, fell, and rose again. And in that arc, he became more than a player. He became a myth. Time will go on. New stars will shine. Records will be broken. But somewhere, someone will always whisper, "You should have seen Ronaldo in his prime." And someone will answer, "Yeah, the real Ronaldo." Because some stories weren't meant to last forever. But now, you know.